Okay, so our topic tonight is on stress. Bang head here. Don't really do that, but the idea is that we often feel like we need to, and in that way, we stress ends up being like a fact of life, like the slide there says, and it's kind of an unavoidable thing. And so the point isn't so much what do we need to do to get rid of all of our stress necessarily, but it may be to look at what stress really is and how it really affects us in our lives. So then that brings us to the first question: and what is stress? So I'm going to put that out to you. How would you define stress for the
Um, I guess pressure at work. Just having to get deadlines in and do too much in a short amount of time.
So like so pressure at work and deadlines in the sense of like somebody or some construct from telling us that we need to get something done.
Yeah.
Um,
And they wanted it yesterday, but they're just not telling us.
Yeah, so forces from the outside kind of telling us that puts us under some stress.
Yeah.
About you, any thoughts about what stress is? And it can be an example or it could be like a definition of one.
Stress. Something that makes me feel like my head's about to explode.
Makes your head about to explode. So something that you can feel with your body, or there's some aspect of it that you haven't experienced, and in your head obviously has never exploded from it.
No.
But but it feels like that, right? So and if you think about it, I mean, I'm imagining that in that you're talking about stresses potentially that are psychological or mental or emotional, and so you're pointing at a sense that mental or psychological stress can actually give you at least the idea of the body sensation of the head. It's going to explode, so pressure and all that stuff. So the truth is that stress is really an inevitability of life, and it's stress in and of itself isn't necessarily the negative or the positive form. But both of you brought up what we would consider like the negative form of it, or the part that impacts us in a way that causes us distress, really, rather than constructive stress. So, like when we go to the gym and lift weights, that's a stress on our system. We actually require stress to grow, evolve, and change. So, stress can be good or bad, in the most simplest sense. But certainly what we're talking about tonight and why we have this topic and why that guy over there says stop freaking out because we often think of stress as that as something that we freak out about and it kind of overwhelms us and why I interact with that as a chiropractor and in our office here is that really stress is everything and stress is the cause of everything that people come to see me to help them with and we'll get more into sort of the nitty gritty of that in a minute, but just know that stress is really the cause of all of our health challenges and all of the things that hold us back in life from really getting what we want. And so, do you think that now in history we are in a less stressful time period than our a couple of generations ago, or more stressful? What would you say?
I think it's a different stress.
Different stress.
Yeah, I would say way back when maybe it was more of a physical stress because they don't have the conveniences that we have nowadays.
So like farming or having to like build your house from by hand.
Doing all this stuff from scratch.
Horse-drawn wagons, all that.
Yeah, whereas it's more of a mental, emotional stress nowadays.
So maybe a difference, a change. That's a good consideration because sort of the easy answer is of course, it's so stressful now. And in a certain sense, we do live in the most stressful time in some ways, right? The complexity, of life, and but also I'll take this opportunity to broaden our definition of stress a little bit because the examples you guys gave were mental, psychological, emotional stresses, and that's what people think of most commonly when you say stress. It's like my boss or my wife or my kids. But stress really comes in three flavors. It's that stress, that psychological, emotional stress. There's also physical stress, like you mentioned. Back in the day when people had to, chop trees down to make a house. And then we have chemical stress. And chemical stress can be things like dietary things that we should be eating, like real food, vegetables, and things like that. It can be things that we're eating that we shouldn't be, packaged processed foods, genetically modified, things like that. Medications, drugs, toxins in the water and in the air, all of those things. And the thing that's remarkable is that our body, it reacts to all of those stresses in the same physiological way. So you can be someone who this would be unlikely, of course, but you could be somebody who does everything right physically, exercises appropriately, gets good movement, exercise, eats really clean, organic, locally grown vegetables, fruits, drinks clean water, everything you could in the physical and chemical stress is low, but they can think themselves into illness because of mental or emotional or feel under stress. Similarly, the other way around, you can have a positive, wonderful outlook on life, but if you sit all day and don't ever exercise, that's a physical stress. Or you are repetitive motion, that's a physical stress, and similarly with chemical too. So that's something important to keep in mind, is that our body doesn't distinguish between those three. It just glums them all together, and that's our stress load in a day or in a period of time. But complexity is certainly on the rise. We live in the most complex time, and in a sense, another certain type of stress we get more than could ever be imagined in history, and that's just the amount of input into our nervous system. I mean, it's almost an epidemic that people are on their phones. I just flew to Colorado and back this last weekend, and someone was mentioning it when I was there, and so I paid attention when we landed, and the seatbelt thing goes off. You're allowed to turn your phone back on or take it off of airplane mode. And I looked around, and it was like, for the 2.5 hours, everyone was, reading or talking or whatever. And as soon as that ding, it's like, and it's like, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but that's just, what were most of them? Checking if they got a call or a text. But then I looked, the people I could see, and it was like, Facebook popped up, or, some news site or something like that. It's like, we consume so much input, so much information, and our children and the generations that are coming up with all this technology, especially, iPads and computers and phones and just the amount of television, it's just a bombardment. And again, keep in mind that all of our stress is mediated by the nervous system, by our same system. And so all of that input is the same in a sense, or could be likened to, having to pull a wagon through the woods and chop trees down and so forth. But it's much more of a complexity. Life was certainly simpler, even if the physical stresses were significant back then. So, so sort of the next thing to consider is, so now we've learned, or we've talked about that our body perceives all those stresses the same. We take that information in and have to deal with what we're going to do with these stresses with our nervous system, and that's our brain and our spinal cord and our nerves, and mostly our brain. And so that's a big part of what our brain does in terms of the interaction between our thoughts and our physiologic health, is take in the inputs and the information from around us, and then make changes accordingly. And some of those inputs are, our eyes or our ears or our mouth, but some of them are other body senses. Like, and going back to, I was in Colorado, and I was at almost 9,000 feet for 4 days. So I know that one thing that happened in my body is just my nervous system perceived that and perceived the elevation change. And one of the things that occurred was my blood had to change as a result, because there's not as much oxygen when you're at 9,000 feet. And I'm used to being down here at like 10 feet or wherever we are. Yeah. And so my body had to make more red blood cells. Now, that's my nervous system's job, to perceive the environment and to make changes accordingly. So that's what happened, and I would assume that if I took my blood pressure, it would have been elevated somewhat to push oxygen to my brain, because that's important, and so forth. My body having to deal with it, and that's a stress. And there's also, at the Colorado Springs Airport, I saw the signs for the Olympic training facility, because they train in Colorado Springs because of the elevation. Because that's a stress as their body adapts to them when they come down here.
It's easier.
Yeah, they work better. So it's a stress, but it's something we see as beneficial, and I saw it, I was like, geez, I can't even walk up a flight of stairs without puffing and puffing.
Right.
Thought I was in good shape, but apparently not. Okay, and so you can imagine yourself walking through the woods, probably not around here so much, but maybe somewhere where these guys live, and a tiger jumps out at you, and your body goes through a physiologic stress response. We call it fight or flight. Another example, you drive down the road and you see police lights in your rearview mirror. Even if you're not doing anything wrong, there's a response. And so we tense. We feel that stress, and what we feel is things such as our heart rate elevating, our blood pressure elevating, our blood sugar elevates, and our LDL cholesterol elevates. The reason these things elevate is because that's the fight or flight is a descriptor of the state. But if a tiger jumps out, and now you have to spring into action, right? It wants to eat you. Those things are kind of big, and if it looks like it wants to eat you, you either got to fight it off, or run, fight or flight, right? So our body immediately, without us even thinking about it, I mean, all we've been thinking, I don't know what we've been, I shouldn't say on camera exactly what my thought would be, but overly, I guess. But my heart rate raises, right? Because I need to run. We're going to assume I'm not trying to fight. Of course, I know running would be a good idea. But, so my heart rate raises, right? Because I got to push as much blood, oxygen, and nutrients to my extremities, my legs and my arms out of there. Blood pressure, the same. We're trying to just push oxygen, push everything to the extremities because maybe if I have to fight, I'm going to use my arms and hands and feet. Blood sugar elevates because we want to, again, get a lot of energy so we can run as fast as we can, at least faster than the other guy who's next to us. And our LDL cholesterol raises. And LDL cholesterol raises because, one, it's the precursor to the hormones that cause all those other changes. And two, chances are for fight or flight, we're going to get injured. And LDL cholesterol is a big part of what our immune system uses to repair injuries. And it's like a first line defense, right? Certain things reduce because now I'm running, right? I don't need to be digesting food. So my gut motility, my digestive enzymes, they all decrease because we want to push all our resources for living. My immune system goes down as well. And that's the cellular immunity, not repair from injury, but fighting off viruses and fungus and bacteria. Because I don't need to be doing that because I got to get out of there and I got to get everything together to get out of there. And then this says body regeneration, and that's things like human growth hormone and so forth. Because again, get out of there, deal with that stuff later. Now in nature, and I say nature because most humans don't operate like this anymore because of our big brains. But in nature, I don't know what exactly tigers eat where they live, but like a deer, let's say, right? Sure. Deer's standing there, tiger jumps out, all the same stuff happens in the deer's body. It runs away, tiger trips, falls down, and doesn't catch it. So the deer gets away. 10 minutes later, it's back, drinking out of a stream, and there's butterflies flying around and stuff. All of these changes go back to normal. We have this problem, our big brains, and we can remember what happened. Not that they can't really remember, but they don't. They don't have to take time dwelling on it. They're not in a temporal reality the way we are. We're the only ones who believe time exists. This dog here, she's got no idea that time exists. It's made up thing. But because and it allows us to do a lot of stuff. But one thing it allows us to do is remember stressful things and think about them more, right? So all of these changes can occur if the tiger jumps out, if our boss is a jerk, if our kids are driving us crazy, if our baby doesn't want to sleep at night, right? But then that can linger with us on and on and on. And so if we take a look at these things, right, we have names for these. Elevated heart rate, tachycardia. Elevated blood pressure, high blood pressure. Blood sugar, we call that diabetes, type 2 diabetes. LDL cholesterol, we call that hypercholesteremia, high cholesterol or heart disease. Decreased gut blood supply and digestion, we call that indigestion, we call that ulcerative colitis, we call that, Crohn's disease, we call that acid reflux, IBS. Immune system decrease, that's called cancer in most cases. Decreased body regeneration or HGH, that's called getting old. There's also serotonin is on this list too because our serotonin is 80% of it's produced in our gut. Serotonin is the feel good, feel satisfied hormone. So when we have a decrease in that, we don't feel good, we don't feel satisfied with life. And so we call that depression. And so in our culture, we have a remedy for all these things, which are different pharmaceuticals or drugs. But it makes you think, because if a tiger jumping out and he gives me high blood pressure, or gives me depression, or gives me IBS, is it really a disease? Is there really something going on other than a normal, logical? This is an intelligent response, right? You got to run from that tiger. You don't want to waste time making serotonin for those 1 minute or 2 minutes you're running. You want to get out of there, so you got time to make serotonin later, right? And it doesn't just call into question the validity of these things being called named diseases. The truth is that they're not. None of these things are actual diseases. In the same way, like a flu. Like a flu is a disease. You can do a blood test, and you can find the organism, and they can get it out in a little, petri dish or whatnot, a vial, and say flu is the organism that is causing you to have the symptoms that you're having. But if you have high cholesterol, or you have high blood pressure, or you have type 2 diabetes, there's no thing they can pull out and say, this is causal. They can say, I put that cup on there and, hit the button and it says 260 over 240, that's high blood pressure. But if I'm running from the tiger and you slap that thing on my wrist and I'm still running, it's going to be like 260 over 240. I mean, that's